is Alessandra Abouzahr. I am an MBA student here at LBS, and I'm honored to be the moderator for our finale, so to speak. And I say that because this panel will feature artists from the MENA region as part of our pillar about culture and tourism. So we will have three panelists, a phenomenal representation of artists from the region with the panel discussion, Mission to Inspire. And I have the privilege to introduce them to you here today. So first, I would like to introduce Michael Ibrahim. Michael Ibrahim is the founder and music director of the National Arab Orchestra in the United States, and he will be joining us shortly on stage. Secondly, I'd like to introduce Farrah El Dibany. She's Egyptian. She's an internationally acclaimed, multi-awarded opera singer, and she has been kind enough to join us here today. And lastly, the Saudi Arwa is joining us here, and she is a poetic Arabic singer, and she will be our final panelist of the day. So if you could please all join me in giving them a round of applause while we welcome them on stage. Thank you for joining us. So I've already introduced you, so everybody knows who you are and knows that this theme of the panel is Mission to Inspire. So I wanted to start with a question for all of you. Anyone can answer. And as artists, you do have a mission to inspire people. So what do you believe is the most powerful aspect of the MENA culture that the world needs to engage in? And how do you convey this through your work?
I mean, the arts is, like I said yesterday at the gala, the arts is one of the most efficient tools we have as a culture to express who we are. So anytime, any opportunity we have to be able to work in that field and share that, we come from a position of strength because we're sharing our culture, and that's a great way to showcase who we are as a people.
To add to this, actually culture is the fastest and easiest way to reach to people. It's maybe the most straightforward way to actually reach people and to engage with them and to make them get into your world. And if I'm talking about me, about my experience, about my work, then I would say it's always building bridges between both or between different cultures. Yes. It's through that I actually reach to a larger audience that is into, not necessarily into opera because I'm an opera singer, but still gets what I'm doing and still gets affected in a good way, in a positive way of my art.
And actually, since you mentioned that, just a follow-up point for you, Farrah. I mean, you are an opera singer, and opera is a grand stage with music and drama, and it attracts audiences, as you said, from all over the world. So your voice, literally and physically, you can harness the power of it as a tool for cultural diplomacy. And how have you managed to do that in your work? If you could talk about that a bit more.
First of all, by actually knowing who I am, knowing my identity. I think it's very important to have an identity. Yes. If you don't have one, then you cannot reach anyone. So that gives you power. So by knowing my own culture, my own identity, my own artistic personality, I'm able to reach people through whatever I do, even if I'm just speaking. I think I could do that. So as you said, opera is not a very, it's more of a niche art form that is not very common, let's say. But at the end of the day, it's a voice that sings, that conveys a certain emotion. So I think, also I'm talking about my own experience, but I think by showing people that opera is also modern, it's not the cliche, sorry?
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, it's not the cliche that we know about it. So it could be modern, it could be up to date, it could be actually very appealing to people that don't know it. It got more popular nowadays. I believe in the region, especially in the MENA region, it has a lot of, it has much more, it got more attention than before the past couple of years. And I think because it's opening up, it's opening to the world, it's kind of giving this platform for people to be more open and not just stuck with their own culture and genre.
Definitely. It's definitely art and music is constantly evolving, but how do you, and this is a question for all of you because you're all artists and musicians, how do you contribute to that evolution, but also preserve the cultural heritage and the traditions in the music, because we have such a rich tradition of heritage in the music that's in the region?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important that we highlight the diversity of that region. This is a conversation we don't talk about enough as Arabs. We don't talk about how diverse we are culturally. There's not a real concentrated effort on the preservation of that culture. And without the preservation of that culture, you don't really have a base to build on. So we see this trend, especially with Arab music in the diaspora. In the States, there's a huge movement for classical Arab music, and that has been, in part, that's been started by Simon Shaheen and his work, and it's because of his work in the States, people like me are able to do what we're doing right now. I've been doing the National Arab Orchestra for the past 15 years, and through that platform, I've been able to build bridges between communities just by sharing the art form and through our educational programming. So it's very important to preserve the historical significance and the historical performance aspects of our music, highlight the diversity so that we actually have a base to build off of, so that when we do create something new, it's rooted in the cultural aesthetics that it is born out of.
And just to follow up to that point, because you mentioned the work you're doing at the National Arab Orchestra, can you talk a little bit more about that work that you're doing, building those foundations, and how they serve as a platform for cultural and economic prosperity in the communities that you serve?
So that goes back to a personal thing for me. My entire life, I've always wanted to find ways that we are connected. And the best way to do that I found was by sharing a piece of my life and a piece of my culture. And as an Arab American, I've been able to kind of have a self-discovery moment through the arts. I didn't do it through normal avenues of, say, religious institutions or political activism and so on and so on. I focused on the art form, and my whole life has been steeped in that. So that was the basis of my work, and our educational programming was based on that as well. In 2013, we got a grant from the Knight Foundation, and we started our Building Bridges to Music program, where we would go into schools, whether they have Arab students or non-Arab students. We teach them how to sing in Arabic, and over the course of that program, they would learn about the culture, and they would learn about the communities. And so we bring together people that otherwise wouldn't normally interact. Picture it. You have students from Detroit, which is predominantly African American, and you have students from Dearborn, Michigan, who are predominantly Arab. And now you have a scenario where they're coming together, working on that one goal of the performance. And so when you bring those people together, you have a platform where now people are interacting, they're sharing things, and they're educated more about their neighbor. So whenever you share a piece of your life, you dispel barriers. And that's where the work of the orchestra has been really, really instrumental in making our little corner of the world just that much smaller.
That's lovely. That's lovely. And Farrah, I know you're doing similar work in a different vein with the UN and Save the Children. And what do you see your role in terms of your career direction moving? Of course, it's very powerful work as well.
As I said, I believe that through music and art and culture, you can always reach more people, and you can always reach their hearts, so their emotions, which is a very strong thing. I think we underestimate it. So for all my life, I've always wanted to actually use this voice that I have, use my art to support causes that I believe need support. And I think my work, this is actually coming to life now, and I'm starting to really have results. So I'm working now on I have a song, my first song being released, actually about sustainability, about education, about raising awareness to kids at early ages to actually, about sustainability and living sustainable. And this song I'm releasing with the WHO very soon. So I'm starting to do a lot of work with the WHO and UNESCO, also coming soon, to raise awareness, especially to kids, not just in developing but also developed countries, about this field that I'm personally really interested in.
How did you get interested in that field? Was it any particular story, or?
Actually, you know, I studied architecture as well. Mm-hmm. So I've always been interested in sustainable architecture and green architecture. So that was, I thought if I was going to continue in architecture, I was going to take that direction. But since I haven't continued in architecture, apparently, and I took a career shift, so my interest is still the same. I mean, and I think now I can even achieve much more through my music and my work in this field than just being an architect working on that.
So you found a way to blend your interests?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. It all fell into the same pot, let's say.
Perfect. And Farrah, I wanted to ask you, because I know recently you had an amazing honor of winning the Arab Women of the Year award. Yeah. And so yeah. Yes, that is well deserved. And so your leadership obviously has inspired many, and women leaders in the region are something that we really are all talking about. So if I could ask, what is your advice to emerging leaders in the arts, especially women, if they want to make an impact? What would you say?
First thing I would say, to find your true passion, your talent, what you're best at, what you love the most, and not just follow any trend or, So you need to find what you really love. And if that's the case, then you'll definitely excel at it at some point if you work on it. You cannot just have a talent and just reach what you want without hard work. So that's first thing. Second, I don't like to think because I'm a woman I need to do more or less. Mm-hmm. I don't like to think in this unequal way. Yeah. I think
to be you.
Yeah, you just need to think, I have qualities, you have qualities, and that's what speaks about you at the end of the day. It's not because you're female or male. And I think in the art world, in general, we're very equal. I don't think we have that kind of distinguishment. I think it's already you need both. We're complementary, actually. It's really
there's a transparency in there.
Yeah,
there is no real barrier. Exactly,
and we complement each other in a way. And so I don't like to really refer to that. I'm an artist. That's who I am, and regardless of my gender, and my work is actually who I am. So that's basically it. I think that's most importantly is really to find what you are best at.
Yeah, and go from there.
Yes, I think that's the starting point. Not just follow any other people's dreams and goals. You need to have your own. You need to find out your own and take your time in that. Actually, it's not a race. It's not a race, and it's always good to have the courage to decide that at some point, even if you're far ahead in doing something, you can still take the decision to quit if you really think that you cannot make it. I mean, when I was studying opera singing in Germany, it was really very hard to get in music schools in general in the world. It's one of the best, but in general, it's really hard to get in. And a lot of people after their bachelor's, after 4 years, they just decide to quit because they have the courage. Some others don't want actually to confess to themselves and to be honest with themselves about not being fit for such a career. But some people do decide to change and switch careers even after finishing with their studies, because it's not just about the talent again, it's about hard work, it's about the personality that you have that fits this career, whatever career it is, and it's also about your persistence and your...
identity.
Yeah, identity, of course, and your vision to yourself. What do you see? How do you see yourself? How do you visualize yourself? I think that's very important. I visualize a lot. I think you know what I mean. So visualizing is really also underestimated, and I think it works in all fields to see yourself doing something. If you really see yourself, it'll happen.
Great. And Michael, I'm going to direct the same question to you, obviously in a different context, as somebody who built the National Arab Orchestra from the ground up and who has such a connection to the Arabic culture, but from the diaspora community. What would be your message to the community and the emerging leaders, especially the whole global community?
You have to be willing to fail. It's really that simple. You have to be willing to fail, you have to be willing to make mistakes, and you have to be open to learning from them. When I started, I had no clue how to run a nonprofit. I had no clue how to put together a board. I had no clue how to actually put on a concert. So those were learning processes, and I was very fortunate enough to have people around me that allowed me the space to learn. That's also important. Tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are, right? So it's very important that you allow yourself the space to learn, change your mind, and improve. As artists, we are always working.
Yeah.
Muhammad Abdul Wahab was actually once, I think, roughly quoted saying that, الموسيقى بحر وأنا لسه واقف على الشط, right? I mean, imagine somebody like Abdul Wahab being humble enough to say, I only know this much. And honestly, in any field you work in, if you have that humility, you're able to accomplish more things because you're able to bring people together. The other thing I would say is, if you're going to lead, which is essentially the position I'm in, heading an organization, you need to realize the value of building up those around you. Because it's those same people that are going to carry the message that you give them out to the rest of the world. So if you have those two things, it doesn't matter how much knowledge you have, it doesn't matter how well prepared you are, you're going to be successful. And even if you do fail, the lessons that you learn from that project or the work that you're doing is it'll prepare you that much more for the next step ahead.
Yes. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah. And the Saudi Arwa, I know you have a song that is very special and dear to you and that you want to mention. So I wanted to open the stage for you to talk about the story.
It's called أهيم بروحي. Excuse me now to talk in Arabic because it needs to express so deeply.
If you could also try to explain the context in English, that would help some of our
It's already translated there, so it will be no issue with that. هي للشاعر طاهر زمخشري. أهيم بروحي على الرابية وعند المطاف وفي المروتين. هذه كتبها الشاعر كان مغترب وقتها وكان في شهر ذي الحجة وكان يعرض على التلفزيون المروتين مكة والمدينة فوقتها كتب هذه الأبيات شوقاً وحنيناً إلى المروتين الغريب في القصة هنا بعيداً عن جمال المعنى والكلمة، إيقاع الأغنية يسمى إيقاع الدانة. إيقاع الدانة من أصعب أنواع الإيقاعات. أساساً هو مأخوذ من خطوات الجمل أو شبيه بخطوات الجمل، فما يتقنه إلا أهل البادية نفسهم.
The biggest challenge we have is funding. Let me say this again. The biggest challenge we have is funding. There's a wealth of talent we have. Last night, when we had the performance at the gala, I brought together people who were local here. I didn't bring my group from the States. I worked with people that were local. All of them are degree-holding musicians who left their country and started a new life here. So the best way for non-musicians to get involved is to support your artists and support the institutions that house your artists. That is probably the best thing that we can work together, because it goes hand in hand. And especially with Arab music, it's a communal process. I can't play my oud and get into a state of sultana if I know you're just sitting there listening and you're not affected. One is contingent upon the other. So that type of involvement for us, culturally speaking, for Arabs, culturally speaking, is very crucial.
And also, actually adding to this, we need to change the perception of people of actually, the perception towards culture, that culture is always taken for granted. This is the problem. While actually culture is so powerful, and at the end of the day, it reaches actually, how can I say, it can have a huge effect on people, but we take it for granted.
There are still, though, while we do have that taken for granted, there are still some people, or there are some governments in the Arab world that really do recognize the value of that cultural diplomacy. And I've seen that actually come out of Saudi Arabia. They really, really have emphasized that work in cultural arts, and that has made a complete revolution in the kind of currency we deal with. If you want to tell who you are, say who you are.
Yeah.
And there's no better way to do that than with the arts.
Tell your story through arts and culture. Tell your own story, And then we can combine it with tourism, with every sector, actually. As said, it's the easiest and fastest way of reaching people.
I can't remember how many times I've watched your Alf Leila wa Leila with, and how you moved the audience. And I thought that was brilliant. So I have some money lying around for funding, if we can combine this with experiences for visitors to Egypt. So, we can talk about that, over the coming couple of weeks, and see if we can put the money of the Tourism Promotion Authority to give you some support to be able to bring that kind of art to the Egyptian cultural scene. We have been already doing that when we could prove to ourselves that this could add to the money. I will have to convince the private sector advisory board, which advises me on this. I will have to seek their approval. So I will have to present a case to them on that, so we could work on that case study together, because I don't like to spend their money without their approval, to tell you the truth. But I'm sure we can work together to put something I'm working on something similar with Farah, and please stay in touch, and we should be able to come up with something.
Absolutely, thank you.
Hi. From your background, what are some lessons you could share about facilitating support to those around us to empower them and create change from a leadership perspective?
Is that for me?
Yeah.
I had a priest who once told me, بدك تاكل عنب ولا بدك تقتل ناطور? Okay? So from a leadership perspective, you have to meet people where they are and take them where you want to go. So that requires, again, a sense of humility. Remove yourself from the conversation and try to see where the person you're working with is coming from so that they can understand what you're saying. Half of the world's problems boil down to communication. Religious conflict oftentimes boils down to semantics. So as a leader, it's very important that you listen first, take it all in, then speak. Kind of like a physician. Physician listens to the patient, then they give them the proper العلاج. I'm born in the States and I can't even find the word. The proper medicine.
Medication.
Yeah, the proper medicine. So you have to, again, humility and listening. Meet them where they are, take them where you want to go.
Thank you.
Then we can conclude today's, the final panel, the finale, the grand finale. And we have a special performance from the Saudi Arwa.
هنا إيقاع الدانة اللي أنا أقول لكم عنه. إيقاع حجازي من مكة والمدينة وجدة. أهيم وفي خاطر التائه رؤى بلد مشرق الجانبين يطوف خيالي بأنحائه ليقطع فيه ولو خطوتين.
في خاطر تائه رؤى بلد ألمس منه الثرى باليدين وألقي الرحال بأفيائه وأطبع في أرضه قبلتين وأطبع في أرضه قبلتين بهيم وللطير في غصنه نواح يزغرد في المسمعين أهيم وللطير في غصنه نواح يزغرد في المسمعين فيشدو الفؤاد على لحنه ورجع الصدى يملأ الخافقين فتجري البوادر من مزنه وتبقي على طرفه عبرتين فتجري البوادر من مزنه وتبقي على طرفه عبرتين تعيد النشيد إلى